Welcome back to Black Bear Forge. It's time for our weekly vlog and some updates into what's going on in the shop. Right now you'll notice that I'm dressed a little bit warmer than I am most mornings when we meet in the shop. That's because it's been down around zero. It was a whole 2 degrees this morning, which if you measure temperature in Celsius, that's well below zero. So it has been bitter cold the last few days. We've had some snow. We haven't had much sun. I didn't even bother to come to the shop. I've stayed inside and caught up on some of my bookkeeping work that always needs to be done, and seems like I am always behind on the bookkeeping. So it was nice to get some of that caught up and stay warm and have a little fire in the house while I'm doing that. But after 2 days, I'm eager to get back to work in the shop, even though it's only about 10 degrees up here right now. And that's after I put off coming to the shop till about 10 o'clock. By the time I actually strike any hot iron, it's going to be close to noon. Then it's going to be lunchtime. Then I'll have to drag my butt back up here again after lunch. So if it seems like I might have missed a video in there somewhere, that's because I took a few days off. So as usual, let's start this with a look at what came in the mail this week. Now, nothing came in the mail this week that was a surprise. There wasn't anything from viewers, but it looks like I spent a whole lot of money online and ordered a bunch of stuff. So let's take a look at some of the things that I've got in mind and what I ordered this week. Now, some of this stuff is for long-term projects that I just haven't gotten done. If you've paid attention to past videos, you know I bought a torch reel, and I've tried to set a torch up to run on propane as well as having one set up for acetylene. But I need some short hoses to make connections, connect to a new gas saver, all that stuff. And I got a propane regulator and a propane gas saver for the torch a while back. I don't think we ever looked at them. It's just a torch regulator, and the gas saver looks a lot like the other gas saver, only it has a pilot light for propane. And I'll have one for propane and one for acetylene, and that way I can use whichever torch I want. But I need a bunch of oddball hoses, and nobody around here sells short hoses. They don't carry hose in bulk to make up hoses. So I ordered bulk hose. I didn't order a very long piece, but it's enough to get started. And I ordered a special little kit that has all the fittings and the special vice grip type pliers for crimping the ends. We're going to try this out and see if I can just make my own hoses. I think after I've done this a few times, I will have paid for what somebody else would have charged me to custom make hoses. And I probably would have had to go to Denver for that. And I didn't really want to go to Denver. Another thing I got to make the use of the torch a little bit more convenient were some quick disconnects. These are from Western Enterprise. All of this I got from McMaster Carr, although these were outrageously expensive. And I think I can get them for almost half price if I go through eBay. And I've noticed that you can get the Western Enterprise ones on eBay, so I think that's what I'm going to do the next time. But these go between the torch and the hose, so I can quickly change torch heads and go from a cutting torch to my regular welding torch or a micro torch or whatever I need to do. And this will make life just a little bit easier in the shop. And I do like using a torch. Now, something else I have here is some Acme threaded rod, and I have nuts that go with this. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to make a little tool holder, and this clamps around the bottom die of the power hammer. This one's from the old bull hammer, and I need to send it to Robert, who's the gentleman that bought the bull hammer. But I'm going to make something similar to this that fits the Samac hammer, and I'm going to use this bigger piece of threaded rod to clamp it to the die so it doesn't move and stays put on the hammer. And the smaller piece of rod will clamp the square shank on the tools either from this side or this side, so that the tools don't bounce around in use. And that's something this one didn't have, and it would have been handy. So Robert, if you're listening, it'd be nice to put some sort of a clamp on this. But anyways, that's something we'll look at. We'll do that as part of the video. We'll show at least the general principles that I use to build something like this. And we'll take a look at how I make this swivel handle, because it's kind of a fun project. Now, in last week's vlog, I talked about a book I got from Brent Bailey, a book called 10 Hammers. It's a self-published book he did, some great photography showing how he makes hammers. And while I don't want to copy Brent's hammers, I do want to learn as much as I can about hammer forging from his techniques. And the book itself did not talk much about materials, nor did it talk much about tooling. It showed the tools, but it didn't really talk about how they're made. This brings up a concept in learning both from YouTube videos and other things online, is don't consider it one-stop shopping. If you want to learn everything Brent has to say about making hammers, you need to not just read his book, you need to watch his videos on YouTube, because he explains his tooling quite thoroughly in a lot of those videos on YouTube. talks about how it works, shows it in action, and he also talks about his favorite steel for his hot work tooling, which is a product called Atlantic 33 or Flutagon. And I don't know if you can see down this piece of steel or not, but it's concave on the sides, or it has flutes running the length of it, and that's why they call it Flutagon. This is one of those things that sounds too good to be true to me. Brent has been talking about this for years. The first time I ever ran into Brent demonstrating someplace, he was talking about how good Flutagon was, and he's still talking about it. And recently he posted a video, and I'll link to that video right up here, that gives a source where you can buy this by the foot instead of having to buy it in 20-foot sticks like Brent does. And the gentleman that sells this, Jan, I believe his name is, and again, look for that video from Brent to get the contact information, sells it in 3 sizes and sells it by the foot. And this is 3/4, 1 1/4, and 1 inch size. So this should make an assortment of different tooling. Most of it will be for hot work tools. And while it is very difficult to find exact heat treat information on this, the Heat Treat Guide app that I use on my phone doesn't even know this exists. The manufacturer's website doesn't have a lot of information on it. It's all a little bit vague. What this is a water hardening steel. It has good heat resistance, but it hardens in water, so that's nice. That means if you're working with this tool and it starts to get hot, you can quench it in water, and you don't have to worry about it like you do H13, which is an air hardening steel. And if it starts to show a glow and you quench it in water, you might have just broke your tool. This should survive that just fine. It also holds up to high heat for punches and things like that pretty well. I think it isn't the best edge-holding steel for chisels, but if you design your tool with a bit of a blunt edge, it also makes fairly good chisels. We're going to try it out. We're going to do a few things. The other thing that Brent says about this, and again, this is hard to find good information online, he says that it is a no-temper steel. You heat it up into the orange range, you quench it in water. Depending on how hot it is what determines how hard it gets. The hotter it is when you quench it, the harder it's going to be, but you don't temper it. Now that's something I have trouble wrapping my mind around. I'm going to have to really fight the urge to temper it, but that's what I understand about this particular steel. Heat it, quench it in water, go to work with it. That's going to be a wonderful steel for making tools out of if it works that well. Brent makes a lot of tools out of this. I actually have a chisel and a drift that Brent made out of this, and they hold up very well. So there's no doubt that it's a good steel. And I'm looking forward to making some tools out of it. I've been meaning to buy this stuff for months, and I just finally got around to ordering it. Talking about not using just one source, even if you're looking at one person's information. So I have Brent's book that tells me something about how he makes hammers. I've looked at his videos where he talks about the A33 or the Flutagon steel, and he talks about how his tools are designed, but he doesn't really talk about what steel he uses for his hammers and most of that stuff. Follow him on Instagram. You can find a post on Instagram where he does talk about what steels he uses. And apparently he likes S7 for making hammers out of. I never would have thought about S7 for hammers, but it makes sense. It's a shock-resisting steel. It ought to take any abuse you put it through. Air hardening, so you don't have to worry so much about quenching it. Brent's book, he talks about using 3-inch rounds. And I could not find a 3-inch round that I could afford. Now this is a piece that I got from eBay. I searched eBay for S7 round bar, and I found this 3.5-inch diameter piece. It's 12 inches long, weighs about 35 pounds. In Brent's book, he talks about using 3-inch rounds that are 2 pounds per inch. So if you need a 2-pound hammer, you cut 1 inch off of this. If you need a 4-pound hammer, you cut 2 inches off. This weighs a little bit more. A 4-pound hammer uses about 1.5 inches of this, which is a good thing because this is over $100 worth of steel. So I want to get as many hammers out of this as I can. But we're going to try this out, and if it works well, I'll buy it again, but I'll keep looking on eBay because it was about half the price to buy this piece on eBay than it would have been through my normal supplier. So that pretty much wraps up what came in the mail. Now, what projects do we have to look forward to this week? Well, some of the same ones we were looking forward to last week, like the hammer. We now have the steel, and we're going to make some new tools to make it, so maybe we'll look at making the tools. We're going to look at making the die holder for the power hammer. Hopefully we'll get that hammer done. And I've got some other things. Somebody just ordered a fireman's axe, so I'm going to make a small fireman's axe. What people in the fire service refer to as a trucker's axe. This is a one-handed axe, something that would be worn on the belt, as opposed to the full-size axe. So that should be a fun project. We probably won't get to that this week, but hopefully fairly soon. Somebody has ordered a rose, so I'll show you how I make my built-up roses. They're made from component parts, not one piece. And at some point, we'll make a one-piece rose because I really want to learn how to do that. But I've never actually made the one-piece roses. It looks like the forged wheat twist, the forged welded twist we did just a few days ago. It's one of the most popular videos right out of the chute that I've ever had. By the time you see this video, it will probably have 20,000 views on it, which is really good. Most of my videos get about 3,000 in that same time period. So I'm really excited that everybody liked that. And it also means that I'll see if I can find some more things along that vein, simple forge welding projects that have dramatic results. And speaking of forge welding, if you're interested in learning forge welding, I've done quite a few videos on it. Roy over at Christ-Centered Ironworks has been doing some very basic forge welds. He's done a corner weld and a T-weld. I think he's done some branching welds, all things that I will probably get to at some point on this channel. But if you want to take a look at those, go over to Roy's channel, and I'll link to Roy's channel right up here. And you can go over there and watch his videos on their welds. That'd be a good place to get your fix on some of these forge welding techniques. I probably won't jump on the bandwagon and recreate his welds, even though my approach might be a little bit different than his. Anyways, I think that's enough. Those of you who care about this kind of stuff are probably getting tired of listening to me talk already. And those of you who don't care, tuned me out 5 minutes ago. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. Feel free to stick around, watch a few of the other videos, share the videos with your friends. But then by all means, make time in your day to get out to your shop if it isn't too cold or too hot. Make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.